trade tensions. The President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, will meet with President Xi Jinping in the Chinese capital. They'll also co-chair the 25th China-EU summit with Premier Li Qiang. The visit marks 50 years of diplomatic ties between Beijing and Brussels, but the celebration comes amid frictions. Both sides have accused each other of unfair trade practices. The EU wants better market access in China and fewer export controls on rare earths. Beijing is calling for calm, urging the bloc to handle differences objectively and rationally. Let's listen in to what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman had to say.
中方期待欧方同中方相向而行，以全面、辩证、发展的眼光看待中欧关系，深入总结中欧关系过去50年的经验启示，顺应时代潮流和双方人民及国际社会的共同期待，凝聚共识，超越分歧，共同规划下一个50年的合作，携手开创中欧全面战略伙伴关系更加美好的未来。
We're once again joined by Andrew KP Lung to discuss this summit in further detail. Andrew, is this summit primarily about de-escalation, or are we seeing a deeper strategic rift between China and the European Union?
Indeed, there's a deeper strategic dimension because the world order, which has reigned supreme since the end of the Second World War, based on a rule-based order accepted by most countries under the Charter of the United Nations. And there's a liberal world order led by the United States since the Second World War has now been totally upended and discarded in face of a almost rules of the jungle imposed by by Trump 2.0. In the name of American first on everything. And this rattle, not only Americans perceive the greatest threat, existential threat, bipartisan consensus, which is China, and of course Russia, but also Trump is throwing away the world order, rule-based world order, and impose likewise tariffs on its allies, traditional allies across Europe and other regions. And hence, the Europeans are now, not that they would like to embrace China or Russia, but they are seeing that the reliance on America for security and other trade, free trade, is no longer entirely reliable. So they are recalibrating their relationship with China. After all, China is still the second largest economy in the world.
Yes,
and it's trying to navigate its relationship.
What kind of leverage does the European Union have in these talks? As you said, China is the world's second largest economy. How likely is it that Europe will succeed in pressuring China for better market access and less reliance on critical export controls?
Well, of course, President Trump is now trying to capitalize on its position as the world's largest economy, the greatest military power, and dominance of the U.S. dollar to impose sanctions and tariffs left, right, and center on almost the entire world, allies included. But of course, China is now focusing on its two main trump cards. The first trump card is China's centrality in the global and supply value chain. If you look at all the products around the world, including heavy planes you see in container ports, heavy drilling equipment, to ordinary household goods and consumer products, almost the entirety is now made in China, even though the products are not marked made in China. China is embedded in them in terms of materials, components, but also logistics. Because the world's largest 7 container ports out of the top 11 are located in China. So that's the first China's trump card. The second trump card is even more existential in terms of its control of the rare earths, not in terms just the rare earths themselves, because you can find rare earths in other parts outside China, But China controls about 60 or 70% of the supply. But most of all, China contains over 90% or even 95% of the processing, because the processing of the rare earths are very, very complicated. They're highly polluting, and China's developed this capability over decades because the Western nations want to get involved with this very dirty rare earth business and been all outsourced to China. And then, of course, it's not just one single process. It depends on the kind of rare earths you need for F-35 fighters, to mobile phones, to household goods, to cars, electric cars. So I think that's also China's trump card in face of America's coercion.
Andrew. KP Leung, thank you very much for your insight and joining us on